chambers?
At that particular time, we were rotating. So I've worked in the Attorney General's chambers.
Oh, they would rotate you on all the chambers?
Yes, I worked in the Civil Litigation Department. I worked in the DPP's chambers. And the last place I worked from was Legal Aid Board. Then left Legal Aid and joined Fedger and Company. After that, formed Makebi Zulu Advocates.
Why did you choose to pursue law? What motivated you?
It was the time I was in grade 7, and the story is quite interesting.
Yes.
Prior to that, my father is a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I always told myself I was going to be a pastor because, you know, every child sees their fathers as their
the
hero.
Biggest role model.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I said I was going to be a pastor. And at that time, you know Mr. Wright Musoma, the president for ZRP.
Yes.
Mr. Wright Musoma, we used to go to the same church. So I was in grade 7, and he used to weld at Long Acres. Right where Barclays was, or
yes.
now ABSA. There's a play park there.
Yes.
Yes, he used to weld right from there. He was doing gas welding from there with Mr. Robinson Kumba, John Kaptula. So one time I was coming from school, Lusaka boys was just there, and I was headed home. I would always visit them from time to time. So we sat there and we were discussing. He says, what do you want to be? He said, I want to be a pastor.
Yes.
Then he says, yes, of course you will be a pastor, but what other thing do you want to be besides being a pastor?
Yes.
Now I thought to myself, I don't like manual work. I like to read. I like to work with my mind. Then I said I was going to be a lawyer. And from that time...
As a second option?
Well, not necessarily as a second option, but something that I thought I was going to pursue. Because if you're going to preach, it's an issue of speaking. So the closest thing that requires you to speak was going to be law for me. And I said I was going to be a lawyer. And I never changed my mind. I never had option 2, option 3.
So from grade 7? From
grade 7,
you focused on being a lawyer? I
knew very well that I was going to be a lawyer. Such that the time I was in school, from grade 8 onwards, I would always be in the debate club and scripture union. Those are the 2 clubs that I was consistent with all the way until university. I was consistent with those. Sometime in grade 12, after I left Munali, I had a short stint with civic education. Then there was Mrs. Lopa, the wife to General Lopa.
Yes.
Yeah, she took me in, and that was from the time we were debating. I was one of the best speakers when we were doing our mock parliament debates.
Okay.
Then I was in grade 12. I must have been in grade 12. And at that particular time, I was representing Zambezi West, in the Zambezi West constituency.
In the chamber.
Yes, in the chamber. And I came
and what
out
was the topic under discussion?
Well, we were members of parliament, mock members of parliament, as it were. It was a mock parliament proceedings. And that was my first stint to sit in parliament and be able to debate and be part of the proceedings, the mock proceedings, as it were. So thereafter, I joined civic education. The moment we joined civic education, Mrs. Lopa included my name on the list of those to be trained as paralegals. Yeah. So went to UNZA. That was the time I was waiting for my grade 12 results to come out. Yes, went to UNZA, did the paralegal training, and during that time, we were taught by Mr. Sangwa as a paralegal. He taught me twice as a paralegal. And thereafter, I enrolled into the university sometime in 2001. Yes, September in particular. I got to the university, and yes, that's my story.
That was your journey into law.
Exactly. Yeah. So from there, we left off at the part where we formed Makebi Zulu Advocates. Then sometime in 2016...
Why did you step out of government to form your own legal practice? To go into private practice and then later form legal practice?
I think I've always been ambitious, and the idea of studying law was also the fact that I wanted to do something where I could stand on my own. Okay. I didn't want to be employed for a long time, to work for someone for a very long time. I wanted to do something that enabled me to work on my own. Okay. Yes. I remember having a conversation with my father where he said, why don't you become an economist? Himself and Mr. Lukangava,
Yes.
We said we need to step out. We need to step out there and just do our thing out there.
No, the Lord has been gracious to the three of you. Lukangava became, special assistant to the president for legal affairs. Mr. Soko is a renowned Lusaka businessman. You even became a member of parliament and a minister.
Certainly.
Did you feel that you had abandoned the law practice when you ventured into politics? What persuaded you to go in? Because your law practice was, in fact, thriving. You had clients such as the former President Rupiah Banda and others, and you had some of these big cases in the country.
My journey into politics was quite interesting. In 2001, no, not 2001, 2011, just after the Patriotic Front won, there were quite a number of cases that arose during that particular period of time. There were a lot of election petitions. So we took up quite a number of election petitions and argued them. And then there were issues of arrests of politicians, those that were in the
previous government.
In the previous government, there were those arrests. I got to represent quite a number of them, and one of the notable ones was Emmanuel Mwamba. Just when he returned from Canada, there was RB himself, quite a number of people that I got to represent, and during those cases, during the interactions with the politicians, I think the interest kind of emerged.
Spiked.
Yes. And mostly it was the conversations I would have with RB, who would drive from Lusaka to Chipata and have conversations, and he would tell me stories of how he got into politics, his experience in politics, his experience as a diplomat in the political sphere. It was quite interesting. It was pretty much interesting, such that in February of 2016, it started as a joke. I said, okay, I think I need to get into politics. So we were having a chat, and the chat with my cousin, Mr. Elton Posha.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Elton Posha is my cousin on my dad's side and my uncle on my mom's side.
Posha the minister?
Posha the minister, yes.
Wow. So you are cousins?
Yeah, we're cousins, and on the other side, he's my uncle. And,
okay.
Yes, so we're having a discussion. I told him I'm going to stand in Mnali constituency.
He had been a mayor, he had been a councillor.
He had been eyeing Mnali constituency. So he goes and he comes to me and says, no, you can't stand in Mnali constituency. I want to stand in Mnali constituency. I said, but I want to stand in Mnali constituency
too.
So he goes somewhere and complains to say, no, because he wanted to stand on the Patriotic Front ticket. He says, it's likely that he may be adopted because he's close to RB, and RB is a person of influence. So why I'm going to have a discussion with him? So he comes to have a discussion with me and says, why don't you go to the village and you stand there? I'm like, okay, I could, if I had to. Then I remembered that one of the clients that I had was Mr. Max Omale.
Oh, Max Omale, yes, the former MP for Malambo, and former minister of Mines.
Yes, and former minister of Mines. He's a great man. We worked very well together. So I called him up and said, I'm interested in standing in Malambo. And he says, okay, I can help you.
Wow.
I can help you. So we forged that relationship, and we worked flat out. We went into the constituency. We went to almost every corner of the constituency. Now you're talking of February of 2016. The election is in August. So the time in between was
barely 7 months.
Yes, barely 6 months in between, before dissolution of parliament and all. So in this period, we had to make sure that I am known everywhere, and was a viable candidate. And
for whoever was looking for a candidate in Malambo.
Whoever was looking for a candidate in Malambo. And I got quite a lot of support from the former president, RB, and he introduced me to quite some notable people from Malambo who were with him in UNIP,
wow.
but still had influence in,
yes,
in Malambo.
Yes.
And that's where I come from. My mother comes from that side. My father comes from that side. So it was an interesting journey. But thanks to Honorable Max Omwale for the great job that he did. He was my campaign manager.
Yes,
together with Mr. There's a gentleman, Mr. Kamuna, who came and joined in as well.
In the campaign.
Who also tried a stint to...
What were some of the revelations in the revelations to you in politics?
The revelations in
you
terms
grew up
of...
in Lusaka, you've been a professional lawyer.
Exactly.
And then you are in the deep end of this politics, where you have to be at grassroots and in the rural areas.
But the thing is that I used to go to the village from time to time.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. And there was very little known of me because I would only visit my relatives there in the village. And yeah, the person that I was going to stand against is a person that was almost there all the time. And to move the tide to a person that is known and came out second in the previous election, to be a novice, never been in politics, getting in for the first time, and having to do all the hard work, it was an amazing experience. I would say it was by God's grace. I just had to be there, and God did everything. Of course, through my campaign managers, I had to borrow credibility from Max Omwale, a very good man. Yes, it was. And
did you learn to speak local language?
I could speak. I could speak the local language. Not
standing with a translator.
Not standing with a translator. I could speak. I could speak the language because I was very fond of my grandmother. And grandfather. And when I was with them, they would always speak to me in Kunda. So Kunda was not strange to me. And every time I went to the village with my relatives, we spoke Kunda.
Does Kunda sound like Ngoni, like Chewa, like Bemba? What is it?
It sounds like Nsenga.
Okay,
yes,
like Nsenga.
It sounds like Nsenga, but some intonations of some words are pretty much different.
Okay.
The original Kunda itself, the language that is spoken by the Kunda people, is supposed to be Vetwe, which sounds more like Visa.
Okay.
So Kunda is an amalgamation of Visa
and
Vetwe and Nsenga. So it's somewhere in between. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It's a very interesting language.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
So that was my stint in politics.
And you became a member of parliament. I think you were very instrumental in issues of law. Quickly you associated yourself with the issues, for example, of Bill 10. And then you were running an administration as minister, provincial minister for the province. What were your experiences there? What did you bring to the office, for example? Let's start with the office of the minister. Because now you're looking at Eastern Province.
Exactly.
You know the perennial problems, agriculture issues, infrastructure issues, lack of feeder roads, crossing points, animal, people conflict.
Human-animal conflict.
Yes.
It was an interesting posting. I've never been a backbencher.
Yeah.
Even before we could go to Parliament, I was privileged to have been appointed provincial minister, and thanks to President Edgar Chagwalungu for having had the confidence to appoint me as provincial minister. I could not have asked for anything better, because as provincial minister, you were